I know I'm a little late to the Sonic Frontiers party, but I recently got a huge urge to play this game, and honestly it was much better than I expected. I feel like the overall opinion of this game was that it was pretty decently fun to play through, but I didn't really see the value until I played it myself. So let's talk about everything this game did that made it my favorite Sonic game since Adventure 2. Also, real quick, almost every person that watches the videos on my channel isn't subscribed, and I'd like to ask you to click the button if you enjoy the content here. But let's get into the video. Heads up, I'm not going to cover the story beats in this video, but I will say that the story was actually quite engaging. From the conversation with Sonic's friends and enemies, to the cutscenes and overall plot, I enjoyed this quite a bit. It felt really climactic. Through the story, I really started to feel like Sonic Team knew exactly what they wanted to get out of this game's more somber, serious tone that they've set up, and it all really worked for me. But let's talk about the game. First thing first, you start out playing through one of the many cyberspace levels. I didn't really see this coming, as most of what's publicized about this game is the open world, but these cyberspace levels really do a lot for me. They're creative, challenges are fun to complete, and you get rewarded with materials you need to progress by completing them, making it somewhat necessary and giving you a reason to seek out to play them all. My favorite part of these levels, looking at it from a Sonic Adventure 2 fanboy's perspective, is that they made so many callbacks to those older levels in their design. You like City Escape? Metal Harbor? Green Forest? Great! We have all of those in this game and more. There are so many more from Adventure 2 that made it into these levels, and I'm sure many of the other levels are called back to older Sonic games as well, giving everyone a little something to appreciate while playing through them. Some people may see this as an excuse to stay away from creating brand new levels for this entry, but honestly I don't see it that way at all. These callback stages aren't bar for bar the exact same as what they're referencing, they just use a ton of camera angles and design choices that harken back to the levels of old. And all the Adventure 2 levels they chose to emulate did this game a huge justice for me, as I'm sure a lot of the levels did for many other players. These cyberspace levels are incredible in my opinion, and I wouldn't have them designed any other way. Aside from the regular Sonic style gameplay in these levels though, we have an entire open world to explore, a first for the Sonic series. While it's not a single open world and is instead broken into 5 different open world islands, every island is absolutely huge and you really can run around and do whatever you like within them. Firstly, there are these platforming segments scattered throughout the world that reward you with items that you need to progress the story. Having not played the game before, I actually thought this would come off a little weirder and more out of place than I ended up finding it to be. My first thought was that it seemed a little thrown together because they didn't know how to make Sonic an open world game, but even just adding the collectibles at the end of each one of these makes it much more necessary than a simple distraction within the world. These segments will also occasionally lead you to places that you might want to be, like a big fight, the next platform segment, or a puzzle in the world that opens up more and more of your map. And speaking of these map puzzles, I actually really enjoy these too. Again, it doesn't seem like they're very cool or interesting from an outside perspective, but while playing through the game and seeking out more of the map, I ended up having a lot of fun with some of these. A few of them are painfully simple, sure, not to mention they have puzzles that make you think a bit, like these tile clearing ones or these Tetris style block building ones. Plus, every time you open up more of the map, you're rewarded with a fruit capable of upgrading Sonic's attack or defense. Oh yeah. Did I forget to mention that this game actually plays like an RPG in that regard? Throughout the entire game you'll be finding the upgrade fruit I've already mentioned, as well as these little blue experience tokens that many enemies will be dropping. After collecting enough of these you get skill points, and with your skill points you can unlock more combat moves for Sonic. I thought this was really fun, because if I were just slapping the same button over and over again for all the combat in this game, it would have gotten really dry really quick for me. Opening up these combat skills really helped me enjoy fighting the enemies in this game. Combat like this has never really been included in a Sonic game as far as I'm aware, and the lengths that they went through to give you unique attacks really shows once you have them all and can kind of freestyle on enemies for any situation that might be present. Around the world you'll also find these little Coco creatures that can be used to upgrade Sonic's speed or maximum ring count. Seeing as you start at 400 max rings in the start of this game, I didn't really touch the ring upgrades a single time, and instead went for speed in every occasion. But there is one pretty good reason I noticed that you might want to upgrade your max ring count after all, and that would be the boss fights on every island. See, once you get to the point of crossing an island off your list, you're faced with a boss fight. And let me tell you, these boss fights are incredibly fun. Firstly, you'll almost always be faced with the boss of an island before it's time to actually fight them, and they all show that Sonic in his regular state is no match for the beasts that these titans are. You need to run around every island and collect the Chaos Emeralds in order to fight them head on, and I really like this. Normally Super Sonic is reserved for the end of any Sonic game, and rightfully so, but this game pulls it out multiple times and I just couldn't be happier. He looks amazing, he controls freely, he feels powerful, his form consumes rings while you're using it, hence the max rings upgrade, and the boss fights themselves are actually all quite different from one another. Sometimes you're fighting a boss in an open field, other times you're flying after them on a sort of on-rails type dodging minigame, and other times you're straight up dueling them face to face in a fight pit. These bosses are incredible, and I just have to mention the music here. Sonic Team straight up ditched the classic butt rock we've all come to know and love from the Sonic series, and instead chose a genre that more so matches the tone of this game: heavy metal. This music really gives you a sense of urgency and epicness all at the same time. Fighting through each one of these bosses is made so much more incredible by the music they chose to make for this game, and I give them full props for this. The bands and vocalists killed these tracks, and I've been listening to them in a playlist here on YouTube ever since. Such true bangers made just for a Sonic game. Unbelievable. Finally, I should talk about the fishing. Everyone and their mom has talked about fishing being a broken upgrade tool in Sonic Frontiers, but I'd like to counter this opinion. It is true that fishing rewards you with special currency that can be used in Big the Cat's shop, and it's also true that this shop holds any sort of upgrade currency you could possibly want to purchase, but you can't just fish until you hit max level. See, this fishing minigame is actually only doable if you've collected fishing tokens from around the open world, and they aren't just found anywhere. A lot of these fishing tokens are pretty well hidden, and the ones that aren't still only supply you with like maybe 5 at a time. Not to mention fishing gets more and more expensive the further you travel into the later islands. By the time I actually reached max level in attack and defense, I was already nearing the final parts of this game, and it felt like it was actually paced out pretty naturally to me. If you get to the final island and you haven't already taken advantage of fishing, you can easily fish for like 20 minutes and come out a completely different hedgehog, and I think that's by design. Another reason you can't do that earlier is because the amount of rewards that you get per fish that you catch in the earlier islands is really minuscule compared to the final islands. Reaching max levels and everything before the end of the game just isn't as easy as the fishing game has been made to seem, and I actually think it serves its purpose just fine as it is. Everything in this game can be upgraded to 99 after all, so it's not something that will be done quickly or near the beginning of the game. There are a few more things I loved about this game though. For one, Sonic actually controls really well. Better than almost any Sonic game I've ever played. The speed feels good. The movement feels more natural than pressing a direction and having Sonic immediately blast in that way, and you can even stop on a dime out of a full sprint. Every other Sonic game seems to wrestle with how to give you the best feeling control over the character, but this game did it really well. There are even options regarding movement that you can mess with yourself to really get the game to feel as good as you can make it, which is outstanding in my opinion. Another thing that I loved was the training mode load screens. This is a great way to keep you in touch with all the combat controls that you have in this game, as they're completely new to the series. If it weren't for this training mode, I think I'd probably have just homing attacked every enemy to death most of the time with one button, so I think this was a great addition. This can also be turned off in the options in case you don't like it. And honestly, I don't know what else to say right now. I went into this game expecting some buggy and slightly annoying Sonic gameplay, even if people had been saying it has much less of that than previous Sonic titles have. And while there was some of that here and there to be sure, like boosting through the world only to be flung into the air off a tiny pebble on the ground, that's not at all what I took away from this game. I genuinely had an amazing time playing through this game, and I highly recommend you play it yourself if you're interested in it at all. There's a little something in here for every Sonic player, and it never really got me feeling like I was grinding needlessly or being told to go on some huge series of pointless quests to get shit done. I just love this game, and I was really surprised by just how much I did. If you want to see my next video breaking down the story of this game though, stay tuned. The easiest way to make sure you can see it is to subscribe and turn on notifications, so I hope to see you all there. But until next time, my name is Myloe, and I'm out.